I suppose I should introduce this because it's my channel.
Yeah.
Hi friends, my name is Emily. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I have a special guest. This is my podcast co-host, Bailey. And did you want to tell us a little bit about what we've been working on?
We've been working on Sounds Civilized, a podcast about music, literature, and everything betwixt. Or is it literature, music, and everything betwixt?
I'm not sure. At some point we'll have to get that down. Yeah, so we've recorded a couple of episodes so far, which will be live at the time that you're seeing this. All the links for everything will be on the screen or in the description box down below for you. This is sort of to get a taste of what the podcast is going to be like. And so for today, we're actually talking about On the Come Up by Angie Thomas, which is in the same universe as The Hate You Give.
That was actually going to be my first question, because I didn't read The Hate You Give. I saw it blow up. I saw everybody into it.
It's not important. It's not like the vague mentions of riots that connects to The Hate You Give.
Yeah.
And I watched an interview with Thomas where she actually did that intentionally because not all Black people know each other and not all people coming out of the same neighborhood will have the same life experience. So that was a very intentional choice that these two girls don't know each other even though they both live in Garden Heights.
Nice.
Yeah. So this is the story of Bree, who is a young Black rapper. She is working on her craft. She is doing all of the things to get noticed. I would say that things sort of blow up for her when she writes this song On the Come Up, which deals with the racism that she faces in her school, the brutality of the security guards there, and the epic failure of the school to recognize this. And this song is sort of for show. She calls out gang members in the song, she calls out the cops, she calls out the security guards. It ends up coming off a little bit more performative than perhaps she actually lives.
It was a sarcastic song, I think.
Yeah.
It was playing into a stereotype, almost to make fun of the stereotype, and people saw the stereotype.
Right.
I want to talk about the marketing for this book, and the editing, and the decisions made to put it in the hands of who it was put in the hands of, which I think overall, white women in our age group, it's us, everybody. I wonder how much of the story was written with that in mind, or maybe not written but edited with that in mind. How much of the things surrounding the book, the marketing, the sort of direction that went, speak to that, how problematic that is.
This is a question that I have been toying with since I read The Hate You Give, actually. I read it and I started thinking a lot about selling diversity. The struggles that I have with seeing yourself represented in literature, because I feel like it's super important for young people to see themselves represented in literature.
100%.
And I don't think that we've really had that in the same way, on the same scale as we have with The Hate You Give and On the Come Up. And since the publication of these books, we've seen a whole host of other texts roll into the bookstores on similar topics, marketed in similar ways. I'm gonna pop some up on the screen now so you can see how other publishers are sort of leeching on to like the visual, which is a strategy in book selling.
They're trying to capitalize on this phenomenon where people want diverse characters, they want diverse stories, but if the diversity is sold and packaged in such a cold and calculating way, I don't think it can be considered good diversity. And I think that's a distinction you have to be thinking about when you're consuming any kind of media. I mean, I would even say especially music.
Yeah.
And I like the way that this book reads. I like the story that it tells. I hope that it is not sanitized for the sake of people's comfort, because it shouldn't be, and I think that would go against what the story is about.
Full disclosure, this is not, I think, either of our areas of expertise in terms of music. So the book does have music in it, which is actually really cool. And so you could actually go through and build yourself a playlist of things that Bree is drawing on for her own art. that she feels are culturally relevant. Now the thing is, even though we don't know anything about rap, I have a list of the musicians here, and I would say that I recognized a fair amount of these artists just from them existing in pop culture.
Let's read the list and see what we recognize and don't.
So there's the Notorious B.I.G.
Know him.
Nas.
Yep.
Jay-Z.
Yep.
Kanye.
Yeah.
Snoop Dogg.
Of course.
Dr. Dre.
Yep.
Mobb Deep.
Yep.
Rhapsody.
Nope.
That was one I didn't recognize either.
That's one I didn't recognize.
The Temptations.
Yes.
Which I don't think is...
It's a Motown group.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Michael Jackson, of course. Remy Ma.
Yep.
Kendrick Lamar.
Yep.
J. Cole.
Yep.
MC Lyte.
Nope.
So she's actually really cool. She
yeah?
was...
Oh, okay.
So she was the first solo rapper to release her own... or first solo female rapper to release her own full-length album. And that was in 1988.
Whoa.
And like... So I watched a video of some of her stuff, and like she went very like, butch, shall we say?
Yeah.
Which I think is really interesting when you look at, so when we hit the rest of the list, people like Nicki Minaj.
Oh, yeah.
Or
that's a really interesting contrast. Or Missy Elliott in that context.
Or Lil' Kim.
Oh, Lil' Kim.
Women who like really embrace their femininity.
And their sexuality.
Yes.
Yeah. Totally.
Versus like, it seems like this first solo female rapper is like one of the guys embracing this really masculine
that makes a lot of sense.
Culture.
That makes a lot of sense.
She was pretty cool. I had fun learning about that.
I really gotta check that out.
And then Missy Elliott,
Yep.
Nicki Minaj,
Yep.
Cardi B,
Yep.
Joyner Lucas,
Nope.
Tupac,
Yeah.
which is The Hate You Give. That is a line from a Tupac song. So
That's all I know about that book. That is the only thing I know about The Hate You Give.
Jean Grey,
No.
Lauryn Hill,
Yes, definitely.
and Rakim,
Nope.
or Rakim.
Further research.
Yes.
I'm interested in looking these things up though. I really love that the examples of music were contemporaneous or related enough to what she was doing that you can see this really clear progression of this culture that neither of us are a part of, but I think sort of looking in, you can see is this very rich tradition of beautiful music that's highly improvisatory, that's highly rhythmic, that has all of these interesting things going on that I hear dismissed by a lot of people because it's missing, I guess, what people would want is more melody, more notes, but just because it doesn't have those things, it doesn't mean it's not this amazing culture of music, this strong tradition. The way that it was described that she was coming up with rhymes like on the fly, like developing in her mind, that's exactly the way a jazz musician is soloing. They're thinking about their chord changes, they're thinking about how they can play notes that fit in, they're thinking about little patterns that they can do, and they're thinking about those things in that computational way that I think the book really got across in terms of how she's having, I guess, her thoughts and then her more rhyming thoughts. I don't know if you felt that distinction, but like I remember reading it and thinking, oh, this is what that feels like.
Yeah, and then every once in a while she would, like in conversation, pick up on a word and be like, what can I rhyme with this? I really loved her talking about her craft too.
Yes.
Like talking about soft rhymes and rhythm and like so much thought. I feel like a lot of people think of this sort of as noise.
Yeah, or talking.
Or, yeah.
And they don't see the value in, well, if it is talking and it's art, then it's poetry.
Right. Like a lot of skill goes into making this work.
Absolutely.
And I feel
so
like
much.
Bree did a really great job of breaking down what sort of thought process would go into either improvising something like this or writing something like this.
Yeah,
So.
and I think I hear a lot of people complain about lyrics. I don't know if you get this, but I get a lot of people who are like, oh, pop music these days with these lyrics. Oh, ma, poker face. If you're looking for like very strong, poetic, beautiful wordplay, hip hop is the place to go. And I think a lot of people miss out on it because of a lot of the assumptions that this book wants to dismantle.
I ended up looking at a list of female rappers other than MC Lyte. There are 3 that like caught my attention.
Yeah.
And so you have Queen Latifah, who made a name for herself talking about the lives of Black women specifically. And she was talking a lot about, I believe, like abusive relationships, the ways in which women are negotiating these things. And then Salt and Pepper did the Salt and Peppa.
Push it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't say Peppa without thinking Peppa Pig.
Oh, I actually have a couple students that have a slight British accent when they say things. Purely because of Peppa Pig.
So Salt and Peppa had very sex positive and frank discussions about their desires and sexuality, which is pretty groundbreaking.
Yep.
And then you move to Little Kim, who abandoned the masculine swagger of the genre.
Yeah.
She basically took on the aesthetic of the video vixen, so the woman in the background.
It's very interesting how that change happened.
Yeah.
And how I think it really relates to the way that people of color were accepted into white society. When you think about a performer like Sammy Davis Jr., he basically was part of the Rat Pack and was doing a lot of things that they were doing, and because he was part of the crew, he was accepted in. And it wasn't until generations after him that people felt more comfortable being themselves, pushing out of that, maybe trying to be the anti-Sammy Davis Jr. purely because they could. So it makes sense to me that somebody like MC Lyte comes out very butch, gains that acceptance by being essentially one of the guys, and paves the way for people to push that as much as they can. Just in terms of how that relates, that makes a lot of sense. It shouldn't. I wish that it didn't. But that pattern seems apparent to me in the way that you break into something by trying to assimilate and then trying to break the mold that you've then created for yourself.
Right.
I do wish that some of the examples that we were given in the book, Biggie and Tupac and all of that, I wish that there was something more obscure kind of thrown in there. I wish that there was something more female. I think that Brie in general seems to be kind of post that sexual period of female hip-hop. Like you think of Little Kim sort of being the beginning of that, and then Nicki and Cardi B. This really speaks to being in a post-Nicki Minaj world to me, because she's not flaunting her sexuality. It is all about what she's saying. She is treating herself exactly as she would if she was a male rapper. I found that refreshing. When I went into this, I kind of expected there to be some sort of skeevy sexualization element to it, because the video vixen is there. It was much bigger in the 90s, early 2000s, and now it's kind of become an empowering thing. I am the object of sexual desire would be what Cardi B and Nicki Minaj would maybe say. But to move past that into what resembles true equality is really inspiring.
I made this list specifically because I wanted to see how many women she listened to, and it's not very many. And I'm wondering again, if this list, because when we went through the list, we both recognized, not listening to this music, we both recognized a good chunk of these names. Again, it comes back to who the book is marketed for. Is this list for white people like us who are like, oh boy, I recognize them? Or, do you know what I mean?
That
like,
Tupac Shakur.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like Angie Thomas probably listens more widely than this list of like top names.
But this is that sanitization that I was hoping against hope wasn't happening. I think we just have to accept that it did to a certain extent. If you had seen more obscure references though, what would you have done with them?
I honestly don't know.
I don't listen to hip hop exclusively. I listen to hip hop, I would say, very casually. If there were newer examples of things going on, I think I would be more likely to listen to them to give me the context of what she was doing. Because it felt to me when I was reading her rhymes, it was very difficult for me to imagine what the backing beat would be. It was very difficult for me to imagine what production kind of ended up sounding like. Because when she's in the ring, for example, and they're in like a rap battle, I personally have never been to a rap battle. I'm going to assume that you haven't been to a rap battle. Neither of us have been to a rap battle. And so imagining how that actually sounds, if it was just a throwaway that like, it was like this in this song when these two rappers did this collaboration, great. And she does name the backing beats there, which did kind of help put that into my mind. But her song On the Come Up, the titular song, I can't imagine, I cannot remotely imagine
I am curious about picking up the audiobook and seeing if in the audio recording they've added music.
That's brilliant.
Because to just have somebody like flat read this would probably sound terrible and awkward.
I agree. Can you imagine being that audiobook reader? Here's your job.
And they're just like, oh crap.
Imagine it's like a middle-aged white lady.
Somebody with a British accent. Stephen Fry reading On the Come Up.
Oh, Christopher Walken.
Yeah. Oh no.
Yeah, wow.
So yeah, if you've listened to the audiobook, let us know.
Feedback, please. That's very true. I feel like the audiobook would have had to have something. But that also means if that something is there, is it created with the input of the author? Or is it just further playing into this marketing that's not by the author, that's packaging this diversity and sort of poverty tourism for us?
Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Have you read The Hate U Give or On the Come Up? What do you think about selling diversity? We would love to hear your thoughts. All the information on the podcast will be in the description box down below. Follow us there, chat with us there. We should have 2 episodes up.
An intro and our first episode about Peter and the Wolf.
Which is actually really exciting.
Really exciting.
I had a lot of fun with that. We also have to thank my patrons. Thank you patrons for making videos like this and other long form content, other cool projects like a podcast possible for me to do. If you're interested in seeing what being a patron is like, the link to the page will be in the description box down below. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll see you soon with a podcast. Bye.